The room went quiet when the handcuffs clicked shut. Gary Ridgway stood still, his face calm, almost empty. Outside, cameras flashed. Inside, detectives felt something heavy lift off their chests. For years, this moment had seemed impossible. The Green River Killer was finally under arrest. Families who had waited decades held their breath. A monster who hunted women across the 1980s and 1990s was no longer free. But as police led him away, one terrible question hung in the air. How many had died before this day, and how did he hide for so long? That question pulls us back in time to muddy riverbanks and dark highways near Seattle, Washington. In the early 1980s, women began to disappear. Many were young, many were poor, some were runaways, some worked the streets. When bodies started turning up near the Green River, fear spread fast. The killer did not rush, he waited. He learned police patterns. He returned to dump sites. He blended into the world like an ordinary man. At first, police thought it might be one killer, then maybe several. The bodies were found over wide areas. Evidence was thin. Families begged for answers. The news showed faces of the missing, then moved on. The victims did not get the same attention as others might have. This helped the killer. Silence gave him cover. Gary Ridgway lived a simple life. He worked, he married, he went to church. Neighbors saw nothing strange. He was questioned by police more than once, even took a lie test. He walked out free. Years passed. The murders slowed, then seemed to stop. Many believed the killer had died or moved away. The case grew cold. But it was never forgotten. In the 1990s, detectives kept the files alive. They saved evidence carefully. New tools were coming, tools that could read tiny clues left behind. DNA testing was improving. What once looked like nothing could now speak. Hair, skin, small stains. The past was waiting for science to catch up. Then, in 2001, everything changed. Detectives quietly followed Ridgway again. They compared new DNA tests to old evidence. This time, the match was strong. It was clear. The science did not lie. When police arrested him, they were ready for denial. Instead, something else happened. Ridgway began to talk. What he said shocked even seasoned detectives. He confessed to killing dozens of women. He described places and details only the killer could know. He led police to remains that had never been found. Each confession reopened wounds for families, but it also gave answers. Names were no longer just numbers in a file. Ridgway said he chose victims others ignored. He believed this made him safe. He said he returned to the Green River because it felt familiar. The calm way he spoke made his words even harder to hear. There was no anger in his voice, just facts. For the families listening, this calm was terrifying.
His arrest showed the power of patience and science. DNA had reached back in time and pulled the killer into the light. Police across the country took notice. Cold cases were reopened. Missing persons lists were reviewed. The lesson was clear. No matter how long it takes, the truth can surface. But justice came with a cost. To avoid the death penalty, Ridgway agreed to confess and help find victims. He was sentenced to life in prison without release. Some families felt relief. Others felt the pain would never end. Knowing the truth did not bring their loved ones back. As the courtroom emptied and Ridgway disappeared into prison walls, one last chill remained. He had confessed to many murders, but not all victims were found. Some names were still missing. Some families were still waiting. He leaned forward in the interview room and spoke like he was reading a grocery list. Names, places, years. Gary Ridgway did not raise his voice. He did not cry. He simply explained how he killed, where he dumped bodies, and why he believed he would never be caught. Detectives felt their stomachs turn as he talked. This was no moment of rage. This was calm evil, revealed piece by piece. And the more he talked, the worse it became. Ridgway said he picked women he believed police would not protect. Many were young runaways or women living hard lives. He met them along roads and truck stops. He earned their trust, then turned on them. He used his hands. He used ropes. He returned to the same places again and again, especially the Green River area. He said it felt safe there, familiar, like home. As he confessed, detectives checked his words against old case files. Again and again, he was right. He described details that had never been made public. He pointed out spots in woods where bones still rested. Each match tightened the knot in the room. This was not bragging. This was truth. What made it even harder was learning how close police had come years earlier. In the 1980s, Ridgway had been a main suspect. He lived near the crime areas. He owned a truck. Witnesses had seen women with him. Police searched his home. They interviewed him many times. He even took a lie detector test. The results were not clear enough. There was no DNA match back then. Without strong proof, detectives had to let him go. Ridgway walked free, knowing how close the net had come. He later said that after police questioned him, he changed how he killed. He learned. He adapted. He believed the system was weak. That belief made him bolder. The task force investigating the Green River murders worked under heavy pressure. Families demanded answers. Media asked why nothing was solved. Officers worked long hours, following leads that went nowhere. Evidence piled up, but science was still catching up. DNA testing was slow and expensive. Some samples were too small to use at the time. Years passed. Detectives retired. New officers took their place. Many feared the case would never be solved. But a few people refused to give up. Evidence was stored, not thrown away. Files were kept. Names were remembered. When DNA testing improved in the late 1990s, investigators began checking old samples again. This time, they had better tools. What once looked useless now told a story.
When Ridgway's DNA finally matched, it was like a door slamming shut. There was no escape. The past had caught him. As his confessions continued, families were called in. Some waited decades for answers. Some learned where their daughters had died. Others learned there would never be remains to bury. Relief and pain came together. Knowing was better than wondering, but it did not heal everything. In court, Ridgway showed no emotion. He listened as victim names were read aloud, one by one. Dozens of lives reduced to moments in a courtroom. He was sentenced to life in prison without any chance of release. The judge called his crimes evil beyond measure. The case changed policing across the United States. Cold cases were reopened. DNA labs received more funding. Missing women cases were taken more seriously. The message was clear. Victims matter, no matter who they are. But as strong as justice felt that day, something still haunted investigators. Ridgway admitted to many killings, but he could not remember them all. Some locations were lost to time. Construction had covered evidence. Rivers had shifted. Forests had grown. Not every family got answers. Some names were still missing. And then came the most chilling thought of all. Ridgway had stopped killing not because he was caught, but because life became inconvenient. He married again. He grew older. The urge faded. Not the guilt, just the desire. If DNA had not improved, he might have died a free man, never exposed. The courtroom was silent as the last sentence was read. Life in prison, no chance of release. Gary Ridgway was led away, his head slightly down, his face still empty. For many families, this should have been the end. Justice had spoken. The Green River killer would never walk free again. But outside the courtroom, the pain did not end. For some, this moment was not closure.
It was the beginning of new questions that would never fully be answered. Investigators went back to the case files one more time. They reviewed maps, old photos, and missing persons lists. Ridgway had confessed to killing dozens of women, but police believed the real number could be higher. Some victims were never identified. Some remains were too damaged by time and nature. The Green River itself had carried away evidence, hiding it forever. Families gathered in small rooms with detectives. They were shown items found years earlier: a shoe, a piece of clothing, a necklace. Each object held hope and fear. Some families finally heard the words they had waited for. Others left with nothing but silence. The cruelty of the case was not just in the murders, but in the long years of not knowing. Ridgway was moved to a high-security prison, kept away from the public eye. He lived a quiet life behind bars. No interviews, no attention. For many, this felt right. He did not deserve fame. Still, detectives occasionally returned to him with questions. Sometimes he answered. Sometimes he said he could not remember. Whether that was truth or choice, no one could be sure. The case forced America to face hard truths. Many victims were ignored at first because of who they were. Society did not see them as important. The Green River Killer used that to his advantage. After his arrest, police departments across the country changed how they handled missing persons cases. Waiting periods were reduced. DNA was collected faster. Patterns were taken more seriously. The story also changed how cold cases were viewed. Evidence once thought useless was now preserved carefully. New technology meant old crimes could still speak. Ridgway became a warning, a reminder that time does not erase guilt, it only hides it. Yet even with reforms, the case left scars. Some families felt anger toward law enforcement for missed chances. Others felt gratitude for the officers who never quit. Both feelings existed at the same time. Justice had come, but it had come late, decades late. Ridgway himself never showed true regret. He admitted his crimes, but never explained the emptiness behind them. There was no moment of apology that felt real, no answer that made sense. For families, this was another wound. They were left to carry the memories alone. As years passed, the Green River Killer faded from headlines, but not from history. His case is studied by detectives, psychologists, and students, not because of who he was, but because of what was learned, about failure, about patience, about science catching up to evil. But one final shadow still hangs over the story. Some victims remain unnamed. Some families still wait for a phone call that may never come. Somewhere, someone may still wonder what happened to a sister, a daughter, a friend. The file may be closed, but the grief is not. The prison door closed with a deep metal sound, and that was it. Gary Ridgway's world became concrete walls and locked gates. No crowds, no cameras, no more victims. The Green River Killer was finally finished. For the outside world, the danger was over. But for many families, the story still echoed in their minds, long after the doors shut. Inside his cell, Ridgway lived quietly. He followed rules. He worked prison jobs. He spoke little. Guards said he caused no trouble. To them, he looked like an old man fading into the background. But everyone knew the truth. Behind that calm face was one of the most deadly killers in American history, a man who had taken lives and hidden in plain sight for decades. Detectives did not stop thinking about the case. Even after sentencing, they reviewed files again and again. They asked one question over and over: could this have been stopped sooner? Ridgway had been questioned early. Evidence had existed. Witnesses had spoken. But the science was not ready yet. The system was not strong enough yet. That truth became one of the most painful lessons of the case. The Green River murders changed how police departments worked across the country. DNA evidence became a top priority. Old evidence was no longer ignored. Cold cases were reopened. Officers were trained to see patterns, even when victims came from forgotten parts of society. The voices of the missing mattered more than before. Families of the victims became advocates. Some spoke publicly. Others worked quietly behind the scenes. They pushed for better laws, better funding, and better care for missing persons cases. Their pain helped protect others. Their loss created change. But no change could erase what happened. Some families never recovered remains. Some never heard a confession tied to their loved one. For them, the ending was incomplete. A question mark remained where closure should be. Every riverbank, every wooded area, every memory carried weight. Ridgway never gave them peace. He never explained why he chose killing over compassion. He never showed real sorrow. His silence became part of his cruelty. He took answers with him and locked them away forever. As years passed, new generations learned about the Green River Killer in schools and documentaries. His name became a warning, a reminder that evil does not always look loud or angry. Sometimes it looks ordinary. Sometimes it works a job, smiles at neighbors, and goes unnoticed. The story of Gary Ridgway is not just about a killer. It is about the cost of ignoring the vulnerable. It is about time lost and chances missed. It is about science catching up when hope was almost gone. And most of all, it is about the victims. They were daughters, sisters, friends. They had dreams that never came true. Their lives mattered, even when the world failed to protect them. Saying their names keeps them from being forgotten. Remembering them is the final act of justice. The Green River Killer will never leave prison. His power is gone. His silence no longer controls the story. What remains is a warning carved into history. Evil can hide. Time can delay truth, but eventually the truth finds its way to the surface. And when it does, the world must be ready to listen. The Green River Killer is locked away and the danger is over, but the questions he left behind still remain. How many warning signs were missed? How many voices went unheard? And how many other stories are still waiting for justice? Behind every case file was a real person, a life that mattered. Remembering them is how we make sure they are never forgotten. If this story stayed with you, share it, talk about it, and keep asking questions. Because sometimes the truth does not disappear. It only waits to be found.